Welcome to Cook It. I'm Barbara Thiel, County Home Economist with the Cooperative Extension Service. This segment of Cook It is going to be on food storage. And I'm going to break it down into 3 sections because we have 3 very nice bulletins that you can pick up on food storage handouts. And the first one spotlights cupboard storage. Now I know everybody means, well, you go to the store and you get a bag of flour, but then when you get it home, it sits on the shelf. That's really not good storage because, bugs can get in there, it can break, just many things can happen. So if you don't have a lot of storage containers, simply use a jar. Now, I know I have over here the flour that we use for different programs, marked flour. A canister's nice, it's handy, you can put a scoop in it, but there's nothing wrong with a glass jar, plastic jar that you pick up with food and save it. But remember, you should use a container that has been used for food, and that way it'll stay fresh. If you have whole wheat flour and you're not going to use it right away, freeze it, because the whole wheat has a whole grain, it can get rancid. Same thing with things like rice. In the bag, sure, the bag's sturdy, but it doesn't keep well long. Use little plastic containers, save them. This little container I picked up with coffee filters in makes a nice container for rice, pastas. Others you can use are your plastic containers. They work real well and they'll keep it for a good year. Things like cornmeal, they'll come in containers too, little bags. Don't store them like that. Just, here's a 2-quart glass jar. Excellent. Put a little label on and you're all set. Same thing with pastas. Decorative containers, they're in now. They're all over the markets. You can get them very inexpensively. Dried beans, use your canning jars. A lot of you don't can anymore. It makes an excellent container for dried foods. Spices, that's another big one. We get a lot of questions. People purchase them in boxes or they purchase them in bulk in little plastic containers, little bags. Put them into whatever you can find at home that will keep them. This one happens to be a spice container. Jars, you can buy little jars or just save containers. Bouillon are great because the bouillon has a nice wide mouth and you can put things in there and get them out real easy. If you have a garden and you collect a lot, use your plastic containers. That way they stay fresh and you don't have to worry about insects. Canned goods are another big question. A lot of these are labeled today, but use them within the label recommendations because they lose quality, they lose nutrients when they're kept longer. If you have trouble, take a dry marker and mark these things. Same things for spices. A year or they're going to lose their fragrance, their color. So try to buy small amounts and use them within a year. That's where it's nice when you can buy them in bulk. So that pretty much takes care of the general storage for cupboards. Like I mentioned, there's a whole list. We go into all kinds of things that you might want to know, mixes, staples, and you can pick this up at the Extension office. Now let's take a look at our refrigerator storage. And the refrigerator storage, the main thing that I find that consumers have problems with is actually the food safety end of it. They'll cook a big kettle, say, of soup, and then they'll wonder how to put it in the refrigerator, like in a big amount, and they'll say, but the soup spoiled before it got cooled. And that's true. When you cook a quantity of food, put it into smaller containers and cook it from those, and then cool it right in the refrigerator. This is some soup that I made yesterday. And you can see even the fat came to the top as it's cooled. It was really quite lean. I can take that fat off of there, and then if I wanted to, I could freeze it in these containers because these containers will go in the freezer. It has enough head space. This one too, in fact, it's on here so nice, it's ready to go in that freezer. It just, there we go, doesn't want to pop off. And leave enough head space. Now yesterday I cooked some chicken rice too, and I put it in 2 containers because the food was so dense it should cool faster. These are not for the freezer. These are not freezer containers. So I would have to use these up within a couple days or they're going to spoil. And same with the soup. If I wanted to save it, put it right in the refrigerator when it's hot. It won't hurt the refrigerator. It won't hurt your food. Cool it rapidly, and then you can freeze it, or you could put it right into the freezer if you didn't put too much in the freezer hot at the same time. And that's one big misconception. People are so afraid to put hot things in the refrigerator, but the time is 2 hours from meal to refrigerator. From the time you take that food out of the oven until you are finished, it should be done within 2 hours, right from the oven through the meal and put away within 2 hours. Things like foods like raisins can be refrigerated. They'll stay a lot fresher. So the big thing with the refrigeration is to watch your dates and then use the food within a date. And we have a nice chart on freezer storage, refrigerator storage, and that you can pick up, and it'll give you the time of days, but really your leftovers can only last about 3 days, and then you should throw them out. I tell homemakers it's a good idea every week at garbage day to go through there on trash day and throw out everything that you haven't used. Clean out those refrigerators. With these frost-free refrigerators, we tend to get too lazy, so you should make it a habit every week. Go through that refrigerator, clean it out with a good baking soda solution, sanitize it, and get rid of food that is old. And you do those things and no one will get food poisoning. All right, now we can go on to freezer storage. And freezer storage, as you know, is the big one. Let's just move this to the side and bring over some freezer storage foods. Now the thing with freezer storage, it's simple, it's easy, it's wonderful, but you need freezer weight containers. And again, I'll bring these right back over here. A freezer's like a dryer, and it takes the moisture out, especially those frost-free freezers. They're wonderful, but you have to wrap for them. Cheese will freeze very well. Freeze it in small blocks like I have here. Thaw in the refrigerator because otherwise it gets crumbly. You can grate the cheese, and these are freezer weight Ziploc bags. They'll freeze just fine, and they should be used up within about 3 months. You can freeze butter. It'll freeze too. Thaw it in the refrigerator, or if you're going to bake with it, thaw it in the microwave. Works real well. For meats, for hamburgers, just make your patties, put them in either a good plastic wrap, a heavyweight foil, put them in your containers, then you can take out what you want. It's a nice way to do with all your meats. You can take pork chops and you can wrap them individually. Then you can use as many as you want and there's no waste. It's a real good way to go. But again, freezer weight Ziploc bags. A chicken like this, no. You put them in the freezer and they get freezer burn. Freezer burn means they dry out, they lose quality, they lose freshness. They're just not good. If you're going to keep the chicken whole, then you need to rewrap it. And again, it's got to go in a big freezer Ziploc bag, or you're going to have to wrap it with something like some freezer wrap paper or freezer weight foil. It has to be freezer weight, the heavy type of foil. What's nice if you can do is if you take your chicken, wash it, cut it the way you want to use it, have your bag for soup parts, works out real well. But if you want to roast that chicken, then wrap it again because it's not going to keep real well long. And then for dry things, you can freeze loose. You can just put fruit in here, and it's just fine. That's loose pack. You can take out as much as you want. You can do that with vegetables. In the summer, of course, we're going to have to show you how to blanch them first, but they'll keep fine. Or you can wrap things individually in packets so that you can take out a packet with so much that you want. And that freezes really nice, keeps the color. These were frozen from my garden last summer, and see how nice they lasted? You can freeze tomatoes, and they'll come out just fine. So you can do a lot with your freezer if you wrap things well, wrap things properly, use your plastic weight containers for the freezer, but don't use things like cottage cheese cartons and yogurt, things that are just not for the freezer. In fact, I have a kit over here put out by Ball, and it shows you can freeze in glass too. Leave headspace, because when you freeze in glass, it expands. The other thing too, glass can break, so if you use it in the freezer, be careful how you stack it, and warn family members when they go in there that there's glass, otherwise it'll chip when it gets cold. And again, the plastic weight for freezer and all the different freezer bags that are freezer weight. So there's a lot of ways to preserve your food and have good healthy foods. You should also date these. When I'm looking at them, I'm thinking they need a date, and you should use them up according to the time allotted, because otherwise, again, they lose color, they lose flavor, they lose nutrients. So I do hope you'll stop in at the Extension Service and pick up your bulletins. They're free on cupboard, refrigerator, and freezer storage. And this has been Barbara Thiel with another lesson on Cook It.